Yeah, well, I thought about the question before, and I think we drew on 4 sources actually. So first of all, obviously, we had a lot of player info from the previous entries in the series. So Train Station, the series has been live since 2009. So there was lots of player feedback, research, statistics, and all that. So we knew what the players liked from these sources and what they wanted us to repeat in the next game. But secondly, we also had our design vision, things we couldn't do before because of technical reasons or because we didn't think of that before, or that we wanted to make the game more immersive and fun for the players. And finally, also things that we thought would make the game easier to develop for us and to do the live ops services more efficiently. Further, there were like areas where we weren't sure what to do, and we used extensive user research to fill these gaps, either player psychological profiles or feature questionnaires. And these were targeted not at the previous train station players, but at the broader train enthusiasts and tycoon fan audience. And I talk about it more in the presentation at LSG. And finally, like as all developments, there were budget and time restrictions, but we used these to help us focus our vision and really implement what we thought was most important for the release. So overall, I think the game is significantly different from a system design point of view. But when we ask players about the game, we usually get a response that we managed to capture the emotional and psychological hooks that make them come back to the game, such as collecting trains, managing your fleet, developing your company, and having realistic graphics and so on. So I think we managed to capture what the players liked. That was actually one of the main areas where we departed from our previous development strategy in Pixel Federation. In our earlier titles, we used to do a slow iterative process during soft launch where we did the base of the game first, like core loop and early gameplay, and only then we added monetization and live ops during the soft launch phase. But for Train Station 3, we had so many sources of inspiration that I mentioned before that we were able to lock in the design early before development even started. So that meant designing live ops and monetization from day one. We actually had like a brainstorming room where it was the creative director of the company, the producer, and me. And every time when we thought about the design of a new feature, we already asked, how will this affect the live ops of the game? How will this affect monetization? Because the games Pixel creates, they try to engage players for many years. So every time we add a new feature, it needs to be future proof. And it cannot like fade out because of inflation or repetitiveness or because of content constraints. So every time we design a new feature, we already thought about the live ops and monetization aspect of it from day one. I think the biggest challenge of all was meeting the expectations set by the previous games. Train Station has been our flagship franchise in 2009. So the bar was pretty high, and we were expected to succeed pretty quickly with this title, more than our other games, which are more experimental. Train Station 2, where I was also the lead designer, launched during the COVID pandemic, where many developers know that it was quite easy to market to new players because everybody was sitting at home. But Train Station 3 launched into a more mature and I would say more expensive market. So it was more difficult to match the performance of the game. But for advantages, I think it's mostly what I already described. We wanted to leverage our previous experience and all the player data and all the user research we already had to create a game that would be effective at engaging players and monetizing from day one. And I think the release showed that it worked for the most part. But at the same time, many of the challenges which developers faced for live ops games were moved to the phase after the release of the game. So the launch went pretty well, but after a year, we have already started moving on to like the reality of a live ops game, and we need to face challenges in terms of long-term retention, monetization, and so on. And I also get into that in my LSG talk. Usually this does happen when we develop games at Pixel, but for Train Station 3, we were able to hit our KPI goals for soft launch right at the start, which was a relief. So soft launch went by really quickly. We didn't really have time for major iterations or discoveries during this time. We were mostly waiting for KPIs, KPI data to evaluate if we met the targets. We added some content and made balancing tweaks and prepared marketing for the full release. But so it went well. It was very short, but looking back, maybe we should have gone more slowly and set the KPI by hour for ourselves. So the launch would be even more successful. A lot of things actually. So the previous LSG Summit in last September was my first game dev conference after about 4 years, which I spent with lockdowns during COVID and then locked in the office developing TrainStation 3. So it was great to get out of the studio for a while. And when I got to London, I was really impressed by the attendee and speaker lineup. So many of the relevant studios we like to discuss our games with were there. And it's one of the few conferences where they aren't just marketing people or biz dev guys, but also people who actually develop the games. And I like talking to them the most. And I also look forward to talking about the development of TrainStation 3 and comparing experiences. So really looking forward to the next summit.